Hey guys, welcome to the Duda 2 channel. So, what a lot of people don't know about me is that one of my other interests is theology. I find it interesting, along with philosophy and the other higher kind of studies. Um, so, in this video, I want to talk to all the people who are interested in maybe understanding Christianity a little better. So, I have 10 books to get you started in theology. Um, I have, as you can see, I got a large book collection. Most of them are theological books, and so it's very difficult to pick out 10. But let's go through my top 10 books to get you started. And if there's an interest, I could share some books for uh, specific aspects of theology, or we could pick a topic or something like that. So, without further ado, my top 10 books for getting started in theology. See you in a minute. Okay, if you made it past my rockin' intro, then you have at least some interest in hearing my opinions about theology. So, what I did is I went through my library and picked out 10 books that I thought, first of all, any person who's serious about theology, Christian theology specifically, we can maybe talk about some non Christian theology in another video, but people who are really interested in learning more about Christianity, I have 10 books I want to go over. And if you become familiar with these 10 books, it's my opinion that you will have a strong foundation in theology. Okay, so first, first is first, and also obvious. So we'll get it out of the way. We need a Holy Bible. This is what we need. Um, what version of the Bible? Well, that's a highly debated question. Um, each biblical version has different pros and cons, which might be another future video on my opinions on studying that. Um, but since we're doing introductory, just get yourself a Holy Bible, because this is going to be your number one source. You're going to be referencing, cross-referencing this. You're going to be studying various interpretations of what the verses mean and what the authors were going through and they were saying these things, etc. So get yourself a Old Testament and New Testament Bible put together. Whether you're Catholic or Protestant, I recommend getting a Bible that has a full set of 72 books, because even if you're going to not believe them as canonical, a lot of Protestants consider them deuterocanonical, and Catholics consider them canonical. Basically, what that means is they're authoritative or not. It's a very basic definition, of course. But if you have those extra books, or you could say the original books before they were taken away, depending on how you want to argue it. I'm trying to stay out of that stuff, so I have to be careful. But if you have those extra books, then a lot of the at least you have them, right? If you need to cross-reference a book, it would be real frustrating if you had to do something other than do it. Of course, there are online Bibles, online sources, which have the entire Bible online if you prefer reading digitally. But I'm more of a book person, as you could probably tell. Next, you want to get yourself a Bible dictionary. There's going to be a lot of terms in the Old Testament and New Testament which just aren't going to make any sense. And you don't always, the commentaries don't always do a good job of, the little footnotes. Sometimes they're just not good enough. Or maybe something will come up where you're interested. For instance, you're reading about a place named Damascus. You get a good Bible dictionary. You'll have a video of it. You'll have maps in the Bible dictionary that you won't have in the Bible. You'll have, here's Egyptian temples and Greek living quarters at the time. So you can get a real visual idea of what's going on at the time. Also, if you read about a certain food or a certain animal and you want to know what they were used for, like, you can get a lot of good context with a good Bible dictionary. I like this one. It's from McKinsey. Bruce. It's called the Dictionary of the Bible. It's got a nice timeline in the beginning. It's an older book. It's probably hard to find. Yeah, it's by John McKinsey, S.J. And it's an old book. Let's see, it's got to be the 50s or 60s. Well, if you guys want the information and you can't figure it out, let me know. Next, we want a parallel Bible. Okay, what that means is it's going to have, and again, you could do this online, so I'm hoping this isn't considered a waste to pick, but a parallel Bible, what it's going to do is it's going to have 3 different versions of the Bible, 4 sometimes, this is 4, of the exact same Bible, 4 different translations. Okay, now these choices of translations aren't my favorite, but they're pretty good. You have the King James Version, which many denominations really enjoy. You have the New International Version, which is also very popular. You have the Living Bible, which I don't believe is very popular with a lot of groups, but it reads easy, but it's also a little more flowery, a little more kind of modern-ish language. And a lot of people like it. It's more like written to be read easier than to be kind of theological. Just my brief opinion here. And then the Revised Standard. So you have 3 main, and then you have kind of an offshoot. So it's not a bad combination. So you could read the same story and get slightly different takes on the wording, and sometimes it's pretty substantial. There were some for instance, there was some substantial differences in the story of the prodigal son, which I found very interesting, of the different versions for the parallel Bible. So I recommend a parallel Bible if you're going to be studying. Again, you can go online and very easily read, dozens and dozens of different Bible version translations. But again, I really like the book, and it's easy to cite and all that stuff. So what you need is a history lesson. Christianity is 2,000 years old. Catholic Christianity, Orthodox Christianity is 2,000 years old. Protestant Christianity, specifically Protestant Christianity, is 500 years old. But guess what? They tap into that larger history as well, and they go all the way back to the beginning. It's like branches of a tree. So be that as it may, you're going to need to know how things developed, what happened in Europe to cause the church to do this and to cause the church to do that, and the split between the East and the West, and early heresies, and you need to understand what heresies are. So all of that stuff, you really need a good history book. Now, I've had a hard time finding a history book which I thought was totally fair. I have history books which I thought were ridiculously anti-Christian, intentionally, and it was obvious. I've also had history books that were so pro-church and pro-Christian that they just painted it as like a perfect institution and minimized all the bad stuff. So you really want to struggle to find a historical reading of church history that isn't overly critical but doesn't hide some of the more disturbing aspects of Christianity, because it's history and we should read it as realistic as possible, in my opinion. So there are a few really good history books, but this is one that I really enjoyed, and I thought it was fair and an excellent introductory book for history. This is called History of the World Christian Movement. It's a textbook for theology students, and it's Irwin and Sundquist. What it does is it's got illustrations and timelines and maps, and it just takes you through the events of Christian history going all the way to the year 1453, which is nice because it stops right before Protestantism starts happening and before the New World starts happening, the discovering of Americas and that type of stuff. So this is kind of actual ancient, kind of old history, whereas you can get yourself another book and learn about the last 500 years of Christianity. You can get a book on the Reformation if you're interested in that. You can get a book on, the New World and how the church has done different things like that related to that. So this is a great introductory history book, and it seems kind of fair. So I'm throwing this one as a recommendation for a history book, even though I've gotten many that are really good. We're talking basics, so this is very good. It's easy to read. It's got a lot of information on here. Now, oddly enough, and I think it's really cool, there is a book that goes along with this, which is also, in this book, highly recommend. It's called Readings in the World Christian History, Volume 1, Christianity to 1453. What's interesting about this is it's got just a ton of early Christian readings, and you could follow along with the history of the church. So you want to read about the Emperor Constantine. Well, let's read about what various Christians said about Constantine, what various pagans and Romans said about Constantine. You want to learn about Byzantium or Constantinople. Let's read about the sack of Constantinople from somebody who was there and witnessed it. Let's read letters that were written between the Pope and the Patriarch of Constantinople. If you're interested in the heresy of Nestorianism, let's read letters actually written by St. Cyril of Alexandria to Nestorius of Constantinople, where they were writing back and forth, arguing over doctrine. A lot of people don't know that. I didn't know that. I find it's very interesting. You could also read chosen excerpts from St. Augustine, the City of God, Pelagius, Ambrose, St. Patrick, and it goes all the way to the Council of Florence, and it points out the Council of Constance and the Council of Florence, and that's as far as it goes, but there's just some really great reading in here. So those two books itself will get you caught up on Christian history for the first 1500 years, which is quite a task, but it's well worth the journey. And this is a good book because instead of reading entire books of that history, it points out some good highlights, and if you find that you're interested, you could just get the book and check it out. And if it's something you're not interested in, at least you'll get the basic understanding of it and see how it developed Christianity, etc. So we're halfway done, and these other ones should go a little quicker. Hopefully I'm not boring you guys too much. Now this is also a very important book. It's related to theology, historical context of theology as well. This is called The Faith of the Early Fathers. It's a 3-volume set from Jurgens. You got to have this if you're going to be getting more serious into theology, because we want to know what the early Christians thought. We don't want to stop at the Bible, okay? Because different people argue what meant what. And there are Christians who actually knew St. Peter. They knew St. Paul. They were members of the first 20 plus bishops of Rome who were martyred. by the various emperors, Nero, for example. Um, we have letters written from uh, very early on within that first generation by people who knew the apostles. We have St. Clement from Rome, who wrote around the year 80. We have a book called the Didache. Some people pronounce it Didache. It's a Greek book. Well, it was written in Greek, and it's an introduction that some Christians would have to read and decide if they wanted to enter and become a Christian and be baptized. It was like a catechetical book. We have St. Ignatius of Antioch around the year 100. We have very early writings from very early Christians, 100, 140, 150. St. Polycarp was said to have sat at the foot of St. John. It's very interesting to read what these very early Christians thought about everything, because the Bible needs context to be better understood. That's the reason we have commentaries. That's why we have the dictionary. That's why we read the history of what people took those Bible verses and moved through history believing that it meant a certain thing. So context is key when understanding Christianity, and understanding what the earliest Christians taught and thought and believed is also very important for context. So this is a 3-volume set, but having just the first one will get you to, I believe, like the year 400 or something like that. It goes all the way to St. Hilary. So, Church Fathers. Okay. Now, there's a philosopher called Peter Kreeft who's fairly famous, and this guy Ronald Ticelli, or Ticelli, depending on how you pronounce his name. This is a handbook of Catholic apologetics, but they also make a handbook of Christian apologetics, which is a little bit skinnier. Take away a few pages that are dedicated specifically to Catholicism. But I do recommend the Catholic version, because having a little bit more for around the same price, and you could read about it and learn from it, whether you agree with it or not, is usually the way to go. But what is so awesome about this is a lot of people have attacked Christianity for various reasons. One of those reasons is they claim it's illogical or irrational, or it goes against reason, or it's superstitious, or you'll hear all kinds of stuff, the Da Vinci Code kind of stuff. Jesus didn't really rise from the dead. They hid the body. They stole the body. They rolled the rock and stole the body. The Romans took the body. The Jews took the body. Nobody really saw Jesus after he resurrected. The early Christians were liars, and the persecutions didn't happen. All kinds of things like that. Well, Peter Kreeft and his partner Ticelli, they go through and they refute all those arguments. Even better, philosophers have attacked Christianity for various reasons. And so they also go through and refute the various philosophical, or at least as well as could be refuted, the various philosophical attacks on Christianity. And it gives, I don't remember exactly how many, 20. It gives 20 arguments for the existence of God that are philosophical arguments. Some are classical, some are new, and they're all very wonderful. They're written very easy to understand, and you'll sound pretty cool if people are talking philosophy and you present this argument for the existence of God and you understand it, and you're going to impress some people if that's what you're looking to do, and maybe you'll stump them. They'll be like, wow, I never heard that argument before. That's logical. That makes sense. It tackles the problem of evil, which is the ultimate attack on Christianity. How could an all-powerful, all-loving, all-good God allow evil to exist? If he's all-powerful, he would stop our suffering. If he's all-loving, he wouldn't allow our suffering. Therefore, God is not, he's either not all loving or he's not all powerful, is how the argument, it, in my brief paraphrasing goes. And Peter Kreeft does a great job of tackling that argument as well. And like I said, in the back, there's specifically Catholic apologetical section, which is also very interesting to read. I recommend the bigger book, but if for whatever reason you could just get a hold of Handbook of Christian Apologetics, has a majority of this stuff in there, and it's wonderful. Next, we're going to have something that's a little controversial, but remember I stated that context is key, and any book that we could read to give us a better context, these last three are going to possibly be controversial, but I'm going to go through them anyway. So, as Christians, we understand the Old Testament in a certain way. We understand it as kind of like a foreshadowing of the New Testament, letting us know about the coming of the Messiah. We tie the Old Testament in to our understanding of the New Testament. The Old Testament foreshadows the New Testament. If you are in the New Testament and you're reading, you look to the Old Testament for context. Where do we look for context of the Old Testament? Well, we have a Jewish study Bible. Let's move this back a little bit. There we go. We have a Jewish study Bible. It's a very thick, well done commentary of the Old Testament by Jewish scholars. Now, we need to be very careful as Christians to understand that a Jewish understanding of the Old Testament is going to be different from a Christian understanding. But if we have the perspective of the Jewish scholars, modern and ancient, and we have Christian scholars, modern and ancient, and we have theologians, modern and ancient, and we have all those understandings of specific sections of the Bible or Scripture that we're understanding or trying to understand, then we're going to really know our stuff, right? We're not going to get hit out of nowhere with some obscure passage or anything. We're going to say, well, actually, this is something that the ancient Christians and the ancient Jews actually agreed upon. Or this is something that the Jewish people disagreed with the Christians because they didn't believe this passage to mean the coming of the Messiah, whereas Christians used it as proof for the coming of the Messiah, or something like that. These are the type of things, if you start taking theology seriously and you start arguing or debating people or having conversations with people who really know their stuff, this is where something like this would come in handy. So a Jewish study Bible, for a commentary, very good for understanding the Jewish perspective of the Old Testament. After all, it is a Jewish book. It's tied in with Jewish people and the Jewish heritage, and so we should get their perspective on it. Now, for the second most controversial aspect, we need a Christian commentary on the Old and New Testament. And there are many really good ones. It just so happens that I have a pretty good one. And it's very good for beginners. It's controversial because not everybody cares for these theologians. Raymond Brown, Fitzmyer, and Murray O'Carm. I'm sorry, not Murray O'Carm. Murphy. Oh, wow, I read the I read the title. How embarrassing. Okay, whatever. But Brown is a specialist in St. John, and I don't remember exactly Fitzmyer. I know he's a Society of Jesus. This is a kind of a serious scholarly work. It's Catholic tilted. However, it has stuff in it that is very challenging for Catholics because it's a serious, modern, scholarly work, and they try to leave theology out of it. They focus on the historical critical method, which is something we can get into in the future if people are interested. But it's a wonderful commentary. Um, it's very detailed with maps. It's very detailed with details. And it's a good beginner's biblical commentary. There are better ones, in my opinion. There are more conservative ones. There are definitely more liberal ones. But this seems to be a little bit of a moderate take. So I would say this would be a good starter one. And this may be controversial, but you know, in theology, that's the one thing you got to learn is that you can't please everybody, right? Now, this is going to be my most controversial pick. Maybe if I explain myself as to why I picked it, it'll be a little less controversial, but I doubt it. But we're going to try. So, whether you're a Protestant Christian, an Orthodox Christian, or a Catholic Christian, whether you're an atheist trying to understand Christianity or a member of another religion trying to understand Christianity, one important aspect of Christianity that isn't really taught anymore is called dogmatic theology. Dogmatic theology would cover things like the incarnation, God taking on flesh and becoming man, the two natures of Christ, fully human and fully God, those higher theological concepts which became, really were always the orthodox position, but were kind of argued throughout the centuries. Okay, that's dogmatic theology, and that's something people tend to ignore, and it's something that, in my opinion, I feel people need to be aware of. So whether you're a Catholic Christian, consider yourself non-denominational, whatever your belief system, if you want to understand theology, you got to have a book on dogmatic theology, and the best one out there is the Fundamentals of Catholic Dogma. I've read a couple dogmatic theology books, and none of them come close to this. Now, this is an old book. It's dated. It's been reprinted many times. This was a book used to train priests. The original book, it looks like the first edition was 1952, and it's been reprinted many times. You could buy it brand new online. Why this book? It's a Catholic book. Why? Okay, well, despite its Catholic character, it also it has all the dogmas of the Christian faith, almost, let's say, in here as well. So in it has defenses for it. It has biblical representation. It has examples from the early Christians. I mean, it really shows how these dogmas developed, how they are to be understood. So, see if I could pick one that's not super controversial. The purpose of the... Alright, let's see. Let's pick a... Now, see, as a non-professional YouTuber, a professional YouTuber would have had this all figured out already, but here we go. So, let's see. Okay, the importance of the sacrifice of Christ. Christ, by his sacrifice on the cross, has ransomed us and reconciled us with God. Okay? So, we have the Church Council, which declared this, which was the Council of Trent. It was a Catholic council in the 1500s. But some of these councils go back to the Council of Ephesus. For example, Christ offered himself on the cross as a true and proper sacrifice. This was taught at the Council of Ephesus in the year 431, And then here's a quote from St. Cyril of Alexandria. Here is um, a few biblical verses, the book of Hebrews, the book of John, St. Paul talking about it in Ephesians and Corinthians and Romans, and then early church fathers talking about how Christ offered himself as a true and proper sacrifice on the cross. And it goes straight down the list with just tons of evidence for it. Christ's vicarious atonement. We could talk about Christ is one person. And then it goes right into the heresy of Nestorianism. It says the false teaching of Nestorius around the year 451, in which two heads of the Antioch school had subscribed to the following principles: that the Son of the Virgin Mary is not the same person as the Son of God, that two persons are connected with each other by moral unity or accidental unity. The man Christ is not God, but a bearer of God. And human activities may be asserted of the man Christ only, and divine activities of the God Christ only. So that's a rundown of the heresy of Nestorianism, and the heresy is refuted by early Christians. Here are the dogmas that go against Nestorius: that the divine and human natures are united hypostatically in Christ. They are joined to each other in one person. And we see that comes to us from the Council of Ephesus. St. Cyril of Alexandria talks about it. And then there are various, the Council of Chalcedon, the Fifth General Council of Constantinople. They all tackle this issue of the two persons of Christ, one fully human, one fully divine. So for this reason, just for getting into theology, getting into understanding Christianity in general, I recommend this highly Catholic book, The Fundamentals of Catholic Dogma by Ludwig von Ott. I believe it's von Ludwig Ott, let's say. So that's it. That's my 10 books that I recommend for getting started in theology. Obviously, 10 books aren't going to cover it. These are just the ones to get you started. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, criticisms, feel free to pop the question in the comments. I try my best to answer every single one, and I usually do, and I enjoy them. I usually get to you in a day or two. And if you have any requests for future videos, let me know. I'm trying to do a whole bunch of stuff. I promised a theology video, and this one's a long one. So, it is what it is. Some videos are going to be longer, some are going to be shorter. But, wow. It took me 30 minutes to talk about 10 books. 3 minutes a book. That's not too bad, right, guys? But that's it. You guys have a good day, and please throw me some thumbs up, and let me know what you think. Appreciate it. You guys have a good one. See you next time.